Single mom's 7 blind date shock ends in amazing twist as CEO witnesses transformative moment. Sarah sat in the corner booth of the diner, her hands nervously tracing the rim of her water glass. The warm scent of pancakes and bacon enveloped her, but tonight, it brought her no comfort. It had been months since her world crumbled when her husband left. And now, here she was, forced into a blind date by her best friend who insisted that a little fun might lift her spirits. She glanced at the clock, the ticking sound drumming up her anxiety as she thought of the bills waiting for her at home and the innocent blue eyes of her son, who relied on her for everything. What if this night turned south, like so many before it? Her date arrived, an unimposing man wearing a forced smile that seemed more like a mask than a sign of genuine interest. As they exchanged pleasantries, she felt the familiar tightness in her chest. The conversation moved from small talk to Sarah sharing snippets of her life. The struggles of a single mother, her joy in watching her son play, and her aspirations of providing a stable future for them both. The proud, confident woman she aimed to be began to blossom during this exchange. But just as the dark clouds of her past began to part, her date cracked a smug smile and scoffed at her dreams. His patronizing tone pierced through the air, belittling her hard work as a waitress and discounting her aspirations as mere frivolities. "Come on, it's just a diner job," he smirked, leaning back against the booth as if he owned the place. Sarah felt her heart descend into her stomach. The weight of disappointment was unbearable, pushing her deeper into her insecurities. Would she ever find someone who respected what she did, who saw her worth? It was hard to fight back that unsettling voice inside her head that whispered she wasn't good enough. The night was supposed to be a break, a chance to laugh, and yet it was unraveling into yet another painful reminder of her life's struggles. Before she could gather the courage to speak, a figure emerged from the shadows behind her. Sarah barely noticed, lost in her inner turmoil, but as she finally looked up, she saw him, an authoritative man wearing an air of confidence that seemed foreign to her world. A whispered silence cascaded over the diner as he faced her date. "You should be ashamed of yourself," he declared, his voice steady and commanding. It was as if he cast a spotlight onto the two of them, exposing the condescension as every eye turned toward them. Suddenly, Sarah felt a jolt of energy surging through her, ignited by this unexpected ally. Who was this man? And why was he standing up for her? The words he'd spoken awakened something powerful within her, a reminder of her strength, of the mother she wanted to be. This moment froze, pregnant with potential. But just as she felt that flicker of hope, her phone vibrated violently on the table, shattering the fragile atmosphere. As her heart raced, she hesitated to answer, aware that whatever news awaited her could either uplift her current despair or drain her remaining resolve. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's breath quickened as she stared at the phone, contemplating who could be calling. The reality of her life and the harrowing choices that lay before her loomed over her like a storm cloud. Would she answer? What if the news was another disappointment, another brush against her fragile hopes? In that suspended moment, she felt the weight of her dreams and fears colliding. Her gaze shifted from the phone to the booth behind her, to the CEO who had spoken up for her, half-ridden with uncertainty about whether she was ready for the ripple effects this night could provoke in her life. Taking a deep breath, Sarah weighed the call against the present. Her finger hovered over the screen. It felt like a decision that could crack open the vault of her emotions, unleashing either a wave of relief or a torrent of despair. Just as she leaned toward the phone, the CEO stepped closer, his presence both comforting and intimidating. "Answer it," he urged softly, a thread of encouragement weaving through his tone. There was something reassuring in his directness, his confidence seeping into her nerves. It ignited a flicker of defiance within her. Perhaps she could reclaim a fragment of control that had slipped away so long ago. Gathering her resolve, Sarah swiped to answer. Hello? Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the steadiness she wanted to project. Ms. Powell? The voice on the other end sounded formal, yet strained. This is Mr. Halstead from the leasing office. We need to discuss the payment for your rent this month. The words crashed over her like an arid wave, suffocating any semblance of hope. Is there a problem? She stammered, her heart racing. It's late. I must warn you, it's critical we hear from you soon. An icy breath lodged in her throat. How could she focus on anything else when the very roof above her and her son was at risk? The weight of this knowledge made the lies she told herself feel so much heavier. She couldn't keep pushing for a brighter future if she couldn't even secure their present. I'll figure something out, she murmured, trying to echo confidence she didn't feel. But the words felt hollow. After the call ended, she felt the energy around her dim, the glances of onlookers tapering into whispers. The CEO's poised demeanor disrupted the quiet tension. You're stronger than you realize, Sarah. Don't let someone else define your worth. His voice, low but firm, vibrated with conviction. And in that moment, she recognized that core of truth in his words. I shouldn't let it get to me. I have to be strong for my son. The clarity of her motivation sliced through the surrounding noise. Exactly. You've already faced so much. His eyes held her gaze, steady and unwavering. I'm here to tell you that you have more power than you think. Not just as a mother, but as a professional. Why are you waiting for others to see it? His questions struck her deeply. She had been blindly fighting against tides and failures, her vision clouded by past disappointments and the noise of others' condescension. What if she could see herself through her capabilities instead of her failures? In that moment, she vowed not just to be a single mom or a waitress but a powerful architect of her life. Before she could respond, her date stood abruptly, grimacing as if the entire exchange had physically offended him. You clearly don't know how things work, do you? He spat, brushing past the CEO with an air of contempt. Sarah felt a surge of defiance swell inside her. She turned to the CEO, seeking affirmation. How do you know it's in me? He smiled knowingly. Because I can see it. All you need is the opportunity to show it to yourself. In that instant, a tide of determination surged within her. The night was still shrouded in uncertainty, but the flickering light of self-worth ignited a purpose she had almost forgotten. But just as revelations began to crystallize, her phone buzzed again beside her half-eaten plate of pancakes. She hesitated, nerves crawling back, and uncertainty returned. As she reached for the device, the CEO placed a gentle hand over hers on the table, halting her movement. Are you ready for whatever it is? His question pinned her in place, challenging her to confront not just the call, but the weight of what lay ahead. Anxiety mingled with newfound courage as she stared into the depths of the unknown, forcing herself to ask what would happen if she embraced the potential of this moment. Would she find a new path, or would she crumble under doubt? All around her, the world vibrated with possibility, and Sarah knew she was on the precipice of change. Could she leap into the unknown? And there it was, an invitation to redefine her future waiting on the other end of the line. As Sarah's breath quickened, she forced her pulse to slow, the gravity of the moment stealing her focus. The phone's buzz thrummed against the polished surface, an ever-present reminder of her precarious situation. She knew she had to face whatever awaited her on the other end, and more importantly, she had to emerge from this moment with her head held high, with a steely resolve. She swallowed hard and answered the call, silently reminding herself of the promise she made to embrace her potential. Hello, this is Sarah, she said, her voice gaining steadiness with each word. Ms. Powell, it's Mr. Halstead again. Thank you for getting back to us. I understand this is difficult, but we need to address the outstanding rent. Do you have a timeline for when we might receive payment? His tone contained a weight that felt suffocating, but Sarah refused to let it crush her spirit. I'm working on it, she stammered, each syllable harder to utter than the last. I have some upcoming work that should help cover the cost. I just need a bit more time. What kind of work? His voice sharpened, curiosity tinged with skepticism. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated. Should she share the details of her precarious job situation? Instead, she shifted the conversation deftly. I've been exploring new opportunities. I am determined to stabilize my situation. This was not only a statement. It was a reaffirmation of her intent to break the cycle of anxiety that had plagued her. There was a moment of quiet on the line, a microcosm where her fate might hang in balance. Would he discount her words? Recognize her growing resolve? The weight of his silence filled the air as she stared at her reflection in the restaurant window beside her. The image of uncertainty juxtaposed against the internal fire kindled by the CEO's earlier encouragement. All right, he finally said, the firmness in his voice softening just a bit. I can offer a grace period of 1 week. Please be proactive in communicating with us. The note of pragmatism in his voice released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, Mr. Halstead, she replied, suddenly feeling emboldened by the support. I will keep you updated. As the call ended, it felt as if she had crossed an invisible line, a transition from passivity to action. The CEO looked at her, a knowing smile gracing his features. That was well done. You took charge of the narrative instead of letting it overwhelm you. Yeah, I guess I did. Sarah could barely wrap her mind around her own response. It was as if the nervous energy that had once dictated her behavior had been replaced with a burgeoning sense of empowerment. In that small moment, she realized how she had spent too long merely existing under the weight of others' expectations and limitations. Continually waiting for validation had left her on the sidelines. But now she was learning to assert herself. A fire flickered in her chest, unmistakably stronger than before. You've got this, Sarah, the CEO encouraged. Now it's time to think bigger. What could you pursue next? What opportunities exist that you haven't considered yet? Her glance met his, and an idea began to solidify in her mind. The thought of exploring new work avenues, of stepping beyond her current circumstances, sent a thrill down her spine. She could envision herself not just surviving, but thriving. With the pressure of impending rent eased, she could plan her next move more strategically. I've been thinking of taking a class, something that could boost my resume. Maybe marketing or project management. She mused aloud, the words tasting sweeter as they left her lips. I want to develop skills that could open doors. Absolutely, he affirmed. Investing in yourself is key. But let's make it more immediate. Research local programs and get back to me next week with your top 3 choices. Consider it a personal assignment. The challenge ignited a spark. I will. A week felt like an eternity, and yet a flicker of hope coaxed her into action. Perhaps it was possible to reshape her life. As they stood to leave the restaurant, Sarah was shielded by an unfamiliar yet invigorating energy. The world no longer felt like a collection of obstacles looming over her, but rather a landscape rich with possibility. Just as they stepped out onto the street, the primary streetlight flickered overhead, illuminating a fraying path ahead. Are you ready for the next step? The CEO asked, a serious edge to his tone. Apprehension twisted in her gut. She could feel the stakes rise once more. What do you mean? His eyes locked onto hers, intense and unwavering. The time has come to face your past. Are you prepared for that journey? The challenge loomed larger than any fear she had faced before, pulling her deeper into a self-confrontation she had ignored for too long. It was about to get even more complex, and Sarah felt the air thicken. What truths would she need to uncover to reclaim her story? Sarah stood momentarily frozen, the weight of his words heavy upon her. Facing her past was akin to standing at the edge of a precipice, uncertainty swirling in her mind like mist. She had spent years building walls, avoiding confrontation with memories that shaped her insecurities. Yet here was the CEO, gently pushing her to confront the very foundation she'd been afraid to examine. Prepared or not, I need to do this, she thought, instinctively straightening her posture. What do you mean by my past? He smiled but maintained eye contact. The patterns that have held you back. Recognizing them is your first step toward genuine progress. His intention lingered, resonating within her. Part of her wanted to evade the inquiry, to retreat into safer territory. but that spark of determination reminded her that avoidance had only exacerbated her fears. With a deep breath, Sarah nodded. "You're right. I've been running for too long. What do I need to do?" Begin by reflecting on your past roles and the choices that led you to where you are now. Identify those moments that defined you, for better or worse. Can you do that? The challenge seemed daunting, yet she felt invigorated by the prospect of reclaiming her narrative. "Yes, I can start by writing down significant events, the people who influenced me, and how I responded. And question those responses," he urged. "What did they teach you about yourself? Your strengths, your weaknesses?" Her mind raced. As a single mother, Sarah had often put her needs last, letting circumstances dictate her path. The love for her daughter had been a guiding force, yet she could also identify the moments of self-doubt that had stifled her ambitions. "I need to change my internal dialogue," she thought, her focus sharpening. "Instead of criticizing myself, I should honor my resilience and adaptability." "Good," he responded, sensing the shift. "Now, let us discuss the skills you want to pursue. You mentioned marketing and project management. What appeals to you about them?" "Marketing feels creative but strategic, two aspects that resonate with my previous experience organizing events in my community," she explained, excitement sparking as she unearthed hidden interests. "Project management could provide a structured approach to executing ideas, which I've often lacked." His nod of approval ignited her motivation. "That's an excellent insight. Both paths can build on your strengths and help you forge new relationships in the professional world." Sarah felt a lightness in her chest, an openness she hadn't felt in years. "It's about connecting with people and forging paths to succeed." "I senti it?" "Exactly," he said with enthusiasm. "But remember, this is not just about skills. It's about owning your story. Combining your past experiences with these new skills creates you, the professional version of you." As they walked, the flickering streetlight illuminated her path, but it also cast shadows. The memories of her struggles flickered in her mind, shadows of doubt and embarrassment that, for so long, had dictated her life choices. A thought surfaced. She could own those memories, harness them for her growth, rather than allowing them to define her. "Are you ready to begin shaping your story?" he asked, pulling her from her reverie. The question sent electrifying waves through her body. It was a challenge she was beginning to accept, not just for her professional aspirations but for her personal identity. "Yes, I want to rewrite it," she replied, feeling the passion in her voice. As they approached the subway entrance, a realization struck her: the journey to reshape her life wasn't just about courses or skills. It was about reestablishing her identity as someone capable of making intentional choices, someone who could define the parameters of her successes and failures. "Prepare for the unexpected," the CEO said, sensing her clarity. "You might discover elements of your past that both surprise and empower you." "I will," she responded, the promise resonating within her. Little did she suspect that the confrontation with her past would unearth not only truths about herself but also lead directly to a professional opportunity that could change everything. As she stepped onto the subway, her heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. What would she uncover, and how would it challenge everything she thought she knew about her capabilities? The answer awaited her, buried in her experiences. As the subway lurched forward, pulling her deeper into the city's pulse, Sarah felt the soft hum of the train beneath her feet, lest she lose herself in the whirlpool of thoughts. The rhythmic clatter blended with her thoughts, crafting a symphony of possibilities and fears. What had she hidden from herself all these years? What latent strengths lay dormant, waiting for her to awaken them? She pulled out her notebook, the one that had seen countless to-do lists but which now seemed destined for an entirely different purpose. Each blank page beckoned her to promise thoughts she had silenced for too long. With a deep breath, she penned down her reflections, her childhood aspirations, the dreams she dismissed, and moments when vulnerability had turned into strength rather than weakness. The flicker of determination surged through her again. Reclaiming her narrative meant confronting every page she turned. "Where do I even begin?" she murmured quietly, lost in the tangled web of her past and aspirations. But as the train plunged through the dark tunnels, The golden glimmers of her past started to surface. What had once felt like shadows now appeared like opportunities for growth and insight. Each decision carved her path. Each mistake was a lesson waiting to be extracted. Acknowledge the pain, but don't dwell, she reminded herself. The mantra felt like a lifeline, allowing her to reflect critically without drowning in sorrow. She recalled the moments of disappointment, job applications she never completed, promotions she never fought for, encounters with people who could have ignited flames of inspiration but fizzled out in her shyness. What are those moments teaching me? The clarity brought forth an energizing wave. The train screeched to a halt, and a flurry of commuters swarmed in and out. Sarah hugged her notebook close, suddenly feeling a swell of protectiveness over the thoughts she was beginning to nurture. Each face she passed ignited a question. How many of them were also grappling with their own narratives? The city's noise cascaded around her, the chatter of conversations, footsteps marching toward destinations, and the distant sound of music filled the air. It was a reminder of life's constant progression. She stepped off the train and walked purposefully down the bustling platform. As she navigated through the crowd, doubt tempted her to retreat. What am I doing? Am I really capable of this transformation? But she quickly dismissed the notion. What she was pursuing was a reclamation, a recognition of potential long overlooked. The ache of self-doubt was real, but the pull of instinct was stronger. She focused on her breathing, grounding herself amidst the chaos. Each step became a testament to her resolve. Arriving at a small cafe that boasted unconventional coffee drinks, Sarah found a quiet corner. She plopped into a chair, her notebook sprawled before her, filled with her evolving thoughts. The aroma of roasted beans surrounded her, and as she absently stirred her coffee, the anticipation tightened in her chest. The CEO's words echoed in her mind, urging her to dig deeper. What do I want to create? She pondered, feeling the urgency of a person on the brink of discovery. Not just professionally but personally as well. Moments later, a connection sparked. She began drafting a vision of the career she wanted, a professional life animated by creativity. A woman unafraid to take on challenges, embracing collaboration, and ultimately sailing through storms. Just then, the cafe door swung open, and Sarah's heart skipped. A man entered, the kind of presence that commands attention. He wore a crisp shirt, a confidence that enveloped him like an aura, the type she once envied. But this time, she didn't feel intimidation. She felt intrigue. Behind him came another familiar face, the CEO from earlier, his eyes sparkling with encouragement as he approached her table. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, an amused grin illuminating his face. "I'm just starting to delve into my reflections," she replied, the weightlessness of her earlier determination returning. "Good," he said, leaning closer, a conspiratorial glint in his eye. "Because you believe what's about to unfold for you today." Her pulse raced in anticipation, a cocktail of excitement and anxiety swelling within her. What opportunity lay in wait? Would this day mark the true beginning of her transformation? "Tell me," she urged, curiosity igniting a fiery resolve. As they exchanged glances, a new chapter unfurled around her, and the weight of impending choices lingered in the air, almost palpable. The CEO settled into the chair across from Sarah, his demeanor exuding a casual authority that instantly engaged her. "I brought someone along to meet you," he began, gesturing to the man who had entered moments earlier. The man claimed a seat between them and fixed his gaze on her, interest mingling with curiosity. "Sarah, this is David," the CEO said. "He's one of the top strategists at our firm. And I think you two have a lot to talk about." As David extended his hand, Sarah fought to keep her composure. It felt surreal to be observed by two accomplished individuals. Intrigue bloomed within her, but it was accompanied by flashes of self-doubt. What could they possibly see in me? She wondered for a fleeting moment. "Your notes," David began, interrupting her spiral of insecurity. "The ones you have there. It's rare to see someone reflect so candidly on their journey. It's impressive." A mix of surprise and warmth flooded Sarah. She wasn't simply an anonymous face in the crowd. She was being seen in her complexity. "Thank you," I'm just starting to explore what I truly want, she admitted, her voice steadier than she expected. Good, the CEO chimed in. Personal and professional development are the keys to thriving in our industry. David, do you want to elaborate? David nodded, leaning forward. What struck me is how you're reframing your past into fuel for the future. That's exactly the mindset we need. Their words washed over Sarah like an invigorating wave, affirming her belief that vulnerability could lead to strength. It was exhilarating. However, as she absorbed this encouragement, the lingering specter of doubt gnawed at her. But what if I fail to live up to their expectations? What's your idea of success, Sarah? David's voice brought her back from the brink of uncertain thoughts. I want to build a career where I can innovate, contribute creatively, and collaborate meaningfully. I want to prove that it's possible, even for someone like me, she confessed, her heart beating faster as each word left her lips. David nodded, a spark igniting in his eyes. You're already on that path, but let us take it further. How about we brainstorm strategies together? We could take a couple of hours to outline your goals and the steps necessary to achieve them. Maybe even tailor them to align with some of the initiatives we currently have. Sarah's pulse quickened. Was this really happening? You'd want to allocate your time to help me? Absolutely, the CEO affirmed, his sincerity palpable. We're always on the lookout for fresh perspectives, and your journey resonates with many of the values we hold. Just as excitement began to replace doubt, a wave of uncertainty washed over her again. But what if my perspective isn't good enough? What if I can't deliver? It's about the process, Sarah, David replied, leaning back slightly, showing he had taken this in hand. It's how you grow. If you've learned from your experiences, that itself carries weight. Let us commit to discovering what your insights can offer. Her thoughts raced. This was an unexpected opportunity, a leap into the unknown that terrified and thrilled her all at once. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that with each moment passing, she was standing at a crossroads. Could she carve out a space where she belonged? Gathering her thoughts, she felt a surge of energy through her fingers as they tightened around her notebook, poised to document the process ahead. What do I need to do first? She asked, determination reflective in her eyes. The CEO exchanged a glance with David, both of them wearing expressions of mutual respect. Let us start by analyzing your strengths and what you already have to offer, David suggested. We'll break it down into actionable items so it doesn't feel overwhelming. Sarah was ready to engage, to finally address the professional fears that had held her hostage for too long. But as she opened her notebook, a sense of urgency burrowed in her chest. The stakes felt heightened now. Was she truly ready to confront the barriers she built for herself? David began discussing strategies, but as the words flowed, one question circled incessantly in her mind. What if I'm not ready for this kind of exposure? The uncertainty hung like smoke in the air, refusing to dissolve. And yet, she both craved this moment and feared it simultaneously. With each passing second, Sarah understood one thing: the path laid out before her would demand her commitment, laying bare not just her aspirations but also her deepest insecurities. Are you with us? David's inquiry broke through her inner dialogue, pulling her back into the present. Taking a deep breath, Sarah realized the moment had come. I'm ready, she declared, eyes sparkling with a blend of fear and resolve. And as she spoke those words, the weight of her past could no longer keep her from forging ahead into the unknown. This was the transformation she had long sought. The cafe buzzed around her, the external chaos contrasting sharply with the internal storm raging within. The question that lingered now wasn't merely about her capabilities but also about who she was capable of becoming. Yet, before she could fully grasp the implications, a sudden thought crossed her mind, prompting her heart to race anew. Could this collaboration challenge the very fabric of her identity? The atmosphere thickened with intensity. The next step toward her future loomed on the horizon, tempting and taunting her like a distant flame waiting to be ignited. Sarah felt the charged atmosphere enveloping her as David began outlining a structured approach to her professional growth. This was no longer just an opportunity. It was a dizzying amalgamation of possibilities that could potentially reshape her entire career. Each bullet point he spoke cascaded into her mind, but she couldn't help but dissect each suggestion with an inner critic that had taken root years ago. So, we'll identify your strongest skills first, David continued. From there, we can leverage them into actionable goals that align with current projects at the firm. His focus was unwavering, yet Sarah found herself grappling with a mental tug-of-war. What did he mean by skills? Were her experiences truly enough to count? As he mentioned marketplace trends and strategic insights, flashes of her earlier struggles flickered through her mind, endless nights of balancing work and motherhood, the pressure to succeed while battling her self-doubt, and the shadows of her past decisions haunting her ambitions. Are you still with us, Sarah? David's voice jolted her from her turmoil, piercing the fog of her thoughts. She nodded, albeit slowly, feeling the weight of the expectations begin to dangle precariously over her. At that moment, the cafe's bustling atmosphere transformed from intimidating to strangely invigorating. Each voice seemed amplified, each laugh a reminder of the life and energy pulsing around her. Let us focus on what brings you joy, David urged, drawing her attention back to the task at hand. Professional fulfillment often stems from what we genuinely love doing. Joy? She echoed, the word feeling foreign yet alluring in the context of her career. Could she truly integrate passion into a field historically dominated by strategy and cuts? Would they see her joy as an asset, rather than a distraction? Absolutely, David assured her. What excites you? Creating? Collaborating? Leading? The answer lies there. As his words washed over her, clarity began to emerge. Writing in her notebook, she made a list. Storytelling, problem-solving, teamwork, and innovation. The words jumped out at her, outlined against a page that had always felt so blank. Slowly, a small ember of confidence ignited within her. Let us use storytelling as a lens, David suggested. It's a powerful tool for engagement and can set you apart in market strategy. And just like that, the fears that had clutched her tightly began to loosen their grip. They were not starting from scratch. Instead, they were building upon the very core of who she was. She could weave her life experiences into valuable insights. I never thought of it that way, she murmured, the realization feeding her burgeoning sense of purpose. Exactly, the CEO added, leaning in as if he could sense her breakthrough. Your unique narrative will resonate with others, allowing you to connect on a deeper level. This isn't just about meeting expectations. It's about carving out a unique space leveraging your story. Encouraged by their insights, Sarah began drafting potential project ideas that drew upon her life as a single mother, challenges she faced, triumphs she won. The innate advantages of her background could transform into a compelling narrative. But just as the world began to feel reassuringly bright, a shadow loomed in her thoughts. What if her past didn't just inform her strategy but became a liability? What if, despite her aspirations, her vulnerability led to criticism instead of understanding? Suddenly, her notebook felt heavy beneath the weight of these fears. Despite the strides she was making, could she truly craft a story that others would embrace, or would they merely see her as a cautionary tale? Let us set specific goals next, David urged. But his words passed through her like wisps of smoke, eclipsed by doubt. As much as she longed to step forward, the fear of failure became a palpable entity in the air around them. Are you still on board? He asked, his brow furrowing slightly in concern. She felt his honest inquiry, a lifeline thrown amidst her turbulent thoughts. With a deep breath, Sarah nodded again, though the apprehension remained etched across her face. Yes, I want to move forward, but I just can't shake the fear. Fear is part of growth, David assured, his voice steady. What you're feeling is natural. You're on the edge of transformation. Embrace that uncertainty. Use it. As their gaze met, tension crackling in the air, she felt a small but undeniable flicker of hope. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges. Yet somehow, she felt herself leaning into the vulnerability of the unknown, ready to confront the shadows that had plagued her for too long. Was she prepared to battle both the possibilities of success and the specter of her past? In this crossroads, She had to decide not just who she wanted to be, but how far she was willing to go to embrace her true self. Her response hung in the air, a resolution but tangled with fear. The question echoing louder than ever shimmered with a daunting promise. Could she rise, or would she let fear tether her once again? As the cafe presented its vibrant panorama of afternoon bustle, Sarah took a deep breath, attempting to navigate the crossroads that David had illuminated for her. The cup of coffee that once served as a comforting prop now felt like a reminder of the tightrope she was walking. With the specter of failure shadowing her every thought, Sarah attempted to refocus on the actionable goals David had outlined. "Let us think tactical," David encouraged, grounding Sarah's spiraling thoughts. "What small steps can you take right now that lead to bigger ones down the line?" The tangible nature of his suggestion felt refreshing. Rather than drown in overarching possibilities, she could tackle manageable tasks one at a time. Determined yet apprehensive, she began jotting down immediate actions. Researching the current trends in storytelling within their industry, connecting with colleagues who thrived in collaboration, and seeking feedback on her ideas. But then her mind kicked back into doubt. Would these steps actually lead anywhere? Would they genuinely matter? The lingering voice inside, an echo of past criticisms, snickered, reminding her of every missed opportunity and thoughtless mistake. The weight of those memories pressed down against the flickering light that had begun to form in her chest. "Let us talk about that doubt," David suggested, almost as if he could hear her internal struggle. "What do you think holds you back the most?" Sarah hesitated, torn between the desire to express her feelings and the fear that doing so might reveal vulnerabilities she wasn't prepared to share. Yet David's earnestness urged her on. I fear the judgment that comes with my story, the narrative of my life as a single mother. What if it's seen as weakness?" David nodded, his expression unfazed. "That's a powerful concern. But consider this, your story offers perspective others may lack. Vulnerability can be an asset in a world that values authenticity." The idea was almost a shock. As a mother, she had often viewed her experiences through a lens of deficiency. Yet, with David framing it as a strength, the possibility was transformative. She began to see how every struggle had equipped her with unique insights. The late nights spent working, while juggling her child's needs, had forged resilience, while the empathy cultivated through her challenges could resonate with clients and colleagues. Encouraged, Sarah scribbled down a new note. "Share my story as a narrative of empowerment." Could sharing not just be a conduit for connection but also a transformative act for herself? What if her path to growth hinged on embracing and owning her narrative fully? But just as excitement flickered within her, an uncomfortable notion rolled in like a storm cloud. But what if others don't understand? What if my realities are too raw, too unpolished? Authenticity cuts through, David responded without hesitation. It's about finding that balance. Explain your fears, but show how you've overcome them. People will relate. Everyone has their struggles. They might just be waiting for someone brave enough to voice their own. His words acted as fuel. Sarah felt tension release as she recognized the wisdom in this iteration of her journey. She needed to stand firm in who she was, not shy away from it. She contemplated how to create a framework for her story that highlighted not just trials, but triumphs. Her life was a testament to fortitude, a resource intact for colleagues and clients alike. Taking a determined stance, she began to draft an outline of her narrative, each detail bolstering a sense of purpose. There was power in her story, a conduit through which she could inspire, align with others, and pave pathways for mutual growth. "Let us circle back to specific projects," David urged, snapping her back to the immediate. "How can we integrate this newfound perspective into what you'll present in the upcoming meeting?" An electric thrill of anticipation coursed through Sarah. There, on the brink of discovery, her apprehension battled with a burgeoning courage.
Why not propose
A workshop that structures team strategies around personal storytelling? It could serve as an innovation session, combining her experiences with the refined insights from David's guidance. Yet even as she considered this newfound ambition, another wave of concern lapped at the edges of her determination. What if the reaction was dismissive? What if her colleagues met her ideas with skepticism? The unsettling thought brought her pulse back into a rapid cadence as she sought to bridge her ambitions with fears. Sarah felt the weight of her choices solidifying beneath her fingertips. Every step forward bore the potential for impact, but with it came the unmistakable tension of uncertainty. In that moment, she stood at a crossroads of possibility and doubt, the next turn looming ahead. Could she brave the choppy waters ahead, ready to steer her own trajectory, or would the fear of failure continue to anchor her? The answer remained tantalizingly out of reach. What lay ahead was defined not just by the journey, but by the courage to face the unknown. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of her home office, casting warm stripes across Sarah's cluttered desk. As she stared at her notes, a restless energy surged within her, tinged with excitement and fear. This feeling had taken root during her meeting with David, pushing her to confront not only her story, but also the real implications of sharing it. Could vulnerability indeed become her strength? Today was significant. She was scheduled to present her workshop proposal in a team meeting. Thoughts of enthusiasm mixed with trepidation swirled in her mind, causing her pulse to quicken. What if they dismissed the idea outright? Or worse, what if they fundamentally misunderstood her intentions? Determined not to let anxiety overtake her, Sarah shifted her focus back to her notes. Part of her preparation included drafting a clear outline for her presentation, one that highlighted how personal storytelling could foster collaboration and inspire creativity among the team. With each bullet point, she envisioned a framework that was not just a display of her struggles, but a roadmap to resilience. She toyed with the scribbled ideas, reorganizing them into a compelling order. Adding anecdotes about her life as a single mother, she laid bare the lessons learned along the journey. Would her colleagues see the value in her experiences? Would they recognize that the challenges she faced had shaped her into a resourceful problem solver? With each word written, Sarah's confidence began to swell, but shadows of doubt crept in again. She recalled past meetings, where her voice felt muted amid louder personalities. How had she allowed herself to stay in the background for so long? Perhaps it was time to reclaim her narrative not just in her personal life but her professional one too. As she paced back and forth, rehearsing her pitch aloud, she tried to picture her colleagues' faces. Would they lean in, intrigued? Or would they exchange glances, bemused by her audacity to present such a personal angle? The thought made her stomach twist. Perhaps they'd find her experiences distracting rather than inspiring. In that turmoil, her inner critic roared, threatening to unravel the progress she had just forged. But then, David's voice echoed in her mind. Authenticity cuts through. She needed to embrace the very aspects of her story that made her doubt herself. It dawned on her this was not about winning approval but about sharing a crucial part of who she was and what shaped her. Focus on the purpose, she muttered under her breath. If this presentation was to open a dialogue, it needed to convey the authentic weight of her experiences, while inviting others to consider their own narratives. With renewed determination, Sarah adjusted her outline one final time, infusing it with a call to action for her colleagues. She imagined a room buzzing with excitement as they uncovered their stories together, bonding over shared vulnerabilities. The clock ticked ominously, reminding her that time was slipping away. With minutes left until the meeting, she steadied her breath, visualizing the path she would carve for herself, no more retreating into the shadows. She would stand firmly in the light of her experiences, ready to share. Walking into the conference room, Sarah noted the mix of familiar faces and a few new ones. Their chatter faded as her presence commanded attention. She could feel the weight of their curiosity and skepticism mingling in the air, both energizing and intimidating. Drawing in a breath, she stepped forward. "I want to talk about the power of personal storytelling," she began, her voice clear yet slightly quivering. The room settled into an expectancy, and for the first time, Sarah felt a flicker of hope in a space that had often loomed large. Just as she embarked on her narrative, a single intrusive thought surfaced: would they reject her vulnerable truths? Yet, atop that fear, a new resolve surged. As she laid out her proposal, she could sense that this moment might define her professional trajectory, a shift from the shadows into the spotlight. The first few responses were tentative, but Sarah sensed an openness in the air, making her feel surprisingly buoyant. Then, as she landed on a particularly poignant anecdote, she caught a glimpse of someone in the back, an unexpected figure who had taken subtle notes during her talk, his expression inscrutable yet intent. Could it be that the CEO was truly engaged in her story? In that split second, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Was this the affirmation she sought, or the beginning of a new meritocracy born from her audacity? What if this is just the start? She would ask herself later. What if the courage to share her story led her not just to new professional heights, but deeper personal connections too? As the meeting progressed, an exhilarating sense of vulnerability swirled, leaving her simultaneously buoyant and breathless. Yet, one nagging question hovered, pulling at her thoughts. What would the CEO ultimately decide about her proposal, and what would this pivotal moment reveal about their shared capabilities? This was only the beginning of a transformative journey, and she stood at the threshold of something that could redefine her, both as a professional and a mother. And, like the morning light that boldly crossed her desk, she was ready to shine. The day of reckoning had arrived. Sarah stood before her colleagues, heart racing as the room settled into an attentive hush. Nervous laughter escaped her lips for a brief moment, but she quickly anchored herself in the purpose that had driven her forward. Today wasn't merely about presenting a workshop proposal. It was about showcasing her journey, her resilience, and the power of authenticity. As she began sharing her story, nerves twisted in her stomach, but nothing compared to the surge of empowerment that radiated within her. Her voice, steadying with each passing sentence, unveiled the lessons born from hardship and the grit it took to rise each day with hope, a single mother striving to craft a better life for her son. A palpable transformation unfolded as the ambience within the room shifted from skepticism to connection. Do you know what it feels like to stand at the precipice of fear while yearning for freedom? She began, feeling the weight of her words connect with her audience. I've battled my own doubts, shadowed by societal expectations, yet I stand here before you, ready to harness those vulnerabilities as strengths. She recounted experiences that had shaped her understanding of both herself and her profession, a reflection of her fight against doubt, and a testament to her unwavering determination. As she moved deeper into her presentation, passion flowed through her, igniting a spark in the eyes of her colleagues. She articulated the concept of personal storytelling as a bridge to foster collaboration and inspire creativity. Each narrative we share has the potential to connect, to resonate, and to unlock new realms of insight, she asserted, her voice growing stronger. The room began to vibrate with understated exhilaration. In that moment, Sarah became more than a single mother or a waitress. She became a beacon of possibility. The very doubts that once clouded her ambition began to lift, an incandescent realization that vulnerability was not a weakness but a wellspring of strength that could pave new pathways. She could see it in her audience, a shift from passive listeners to engaged participants as they nodded or exchanged glances. When she concluded her presentation, Sarah stood breathless, awash in the warmth of newfound confidence. Questions emerged from her colleagues, reflecting genuine curiosity and interest sparked by the rawness of her story. The CEO, who had observed quietly, finally spoke up. You've opened a door today, Sarah, and we need to explore what lies beyond. What you've presented aligns perfectly with our goals. We should collaborate further on this. In that instant, a wave of validation washed over her, a recognition of what she had always sought. She had proven that stepping into the light of her vulnerabilities could transform not only her own life but create ripples throughout her professional realm. The fear that had loomed large was rendered inconsequential against the backdrop of her accomplishment. After the meeting, Sarah felt a profound shift within. She was no longer the woman shrouded in insecurity, battling perceptions of inadequacy. Instead, she emerged as a confident professional, ready to take ownership of her narrative, actively pursuing a future that resonated with authenticity and strength. Reflecting on her journey, Sarah recognized how each challenge had forged an unwavering resilience. The blend of her experiences as a single mother and her aspirations for professional success no longer felt disparate. They intertwined seamlessly to define a powerful narrative that belonged uniquely to her. As days turned into weeks, Sarah dedicated herself to crafting her presentation into a workshop for her team, now reinforced by collaboration with her colleagues. Each brainstorming session transformed into a creative assembly of thoughts and ideas, blossoming into a shared vision. The unexpected turn that night at the diner, the moment when the CEO had stepped into her life, became a cornerstone of her transformation. Her confidence solidified with every step forward, leaving behind doubts that had long shackled her aspirations. As she submitted her workshop outline, a buzz of anticipation electrified the air. Returning home, she embraced her son with a sense of fulfillment she had never known. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" he asked simply, his innocent eyes gazing up at her. Her heart swelled with the assurance that they were more than okay. They were thriving and planning for a future steeped in possibility. With resolve, Sarah envisioned not just fleeting victories, but an enduring legacy of resilience that would inspire others. This was her moment of triumph, steering her life with intention and authenticity, step by step leading to a horizon painted with endless opportunity. The journey continued, but now it held the promise of transformation steeped in lived experiences. She had emerged as the architect of her own story, primed to embrace the future with solid confidence and a clear sense of purpose. Realizing that her narrative could empower many others, she vowed never to contemplate retreating again. Sarah would rise, shining brightly in her truth, knowing that this was just the beginning of the life she had always deserved. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them know what transformation looks like.